A justiça eletrónica poderá aproximar o cidadão da justiça e torná-la mais acessível, mas para isso, no meu entender, é necessário um investimento em literacia digital.
Yes, I agree. People would feel much more involved in justice if they could read all papers and if they under regulamentations and legislation and if they could vote from their home. They could be more involved in things and issues that matters for them.
Penso que a justiça eletrónica pode tornar-se mais acessível, tornar a justiça mais acessível e mais próxima dos cidadãos. Obviamente, nem tudo pode ser transformado eletronicamente, também é assim nas empresas e no mundo industrial, mas penso que determinados procedimentos documentais, de consulta, de estados de processo, etc., poderão ser transformados eletronicamente de forma mais simples e acessível para todos os cidadãos. Tenho algumas dúvidas em relação a alguns outros processos, nomeadamente julgamentos, por exemplo, que possam ser todos em processos mais complexos pela via digital.
Welcome back. Some of us here in Lisbon enjoyed a cup of coffee and one of the most popular pastries in the country and in Lisbon, the pastel de nata, a small delicious cream tart that is famous worldwide. And it's reassuring that sometimes you get exactly what you expect. The past year showed us that this can be very scarce nowadays because everything changed suddenly. At the moment, we are looking for some kind of return to normal because of the pandemic crisis. But do we really want our former normal back as it was? Ask most of SMEs. They are the backbone of Europe's economy, and they are struggling. Some will never return to normal, and for those who will, normal promises to be a very different word. And again, this is a challenge for justice. When needs change, justice should follow as fast and solid as possible. Right now, there are issues ranging from loan payments to labor disputes, bankruptcies. To moderate this second power conversation of the afternoon, we have Tatyana Teplova, Senior Counsellor for Gender, Justice and Inclusiveness in OECD. Please, Tatyana Teplova, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It really is a great honor to be part of this exciting conference. And of course, I would have loved to be there in person as a few years back when Portugal hosted the OECD Roundtable on Access to Justice. But it really is a great pleasure to join so many fantastic speakers today in this virtual format to discuss people-centered eJustice. Congratulations to the government of Portugal for placing this agenda among the priorities as part of its presidency of the European Council. And we had the chance of hearing extremely interesting interventions throughout the day. And you've heard our Secretary General stressing the importance of people centricity of justice to ensure that countries can take the opportunity of the crisis to build back better. And the first power conversation that we've just heard, moderated by Mike, focused on how we can ensure that justice systems are in the best position to respond to the needs of the people. However, this conversation on access to justice more broadly would not be complete if we miss the role of businesses and small and medium enterprises, SMEs. And we know from the OECD data that SMEs represent one of the most important employers and income source for many communities. For instance, SMEs account for more than 60% of employment in the OECD area. They also constitute the bulk of the business population because they represent close to 95, almost 99 of the business population across OECD countries. Therefore, their unmet needs can have devastating triple effects. And we also know, and this was discussed already in the previous interventions, that during the crisis, many of the legal needs have increased, and this is also true for SMEs. But when it comes to accessing justice, SMEs face particular challenges, for instance, as compared to larger companies, because their costs in engaging with justice services and engaging with legal services can be relatively higher than those of larger companies, for instance, when looking at the net revenue. And they may also face barriers related to the complexity and procedures in the legal system. We also know that legal needs can be costly. Both Professor Ferro and our Secretary General mentioned some figures today, but let me also highlight that, for instance, some country-level estimates in the United Kingdom, for instance, show that unresolved disputes and serious legal problems may cost the economy up to £3.5 billion annually. So the cost is indeed quite significant. And therefore, designing justice systems which are responsive to the needs of the people, and then, of course, when we look at business, to the needs of SMEs is urgent, more urgent than ever. The good news, of course, is that the crisis has shown that innovation in the justice sector is possible, as was mentioned in the previous interventions, but also as we observed in many of our member and partner countries. And actually, this was one of the key topics during the recent OECD roundtable on accessible and people-centered justice, but then also highlighted in the forthcoming brief on business-friendly justice. And importantly, one key takeaways that I'd like to highlight is the importance of meeting businesses where they are as part of their regular business activities. This can include such initiatives as one-stop shops for different users, including omni-channel service delivery, mobile access, and then integration of different tools and practices to remove practical and technological barriers in accessing justice. And of course, technology and data play a critical role in enhancing these services, but they cannot replace the need to reflect on the nature and overall design of our justice systems and whether they are able to effectively respond to the different needs. And with this, I'd like to introduce our excellent panel. First, we have Professor Felix Steffek, who is the law professor from the University of Cambridge and co-director of the Center for Corporate and Commercial Law. We also have Ms. Laila Medina, who is the Deputy State Secretary of Court Issues of Latvia. And last but not least, we have Mr. Neves, João Neves, who is the Deputy Minister for the Economy of Portugal. And now let me turn to Professor Steffek. Felix, you've been working on the issues related to justice for business or user-friendly justice for many years by now. So in your view, what is the role of accessible and effective justice systems for business, also as an enabler for building back better? Please.
Thank you, Tatyana. It's a great pleasure joining this power conversation. First, I would like to emphasize that access to justice is essential for the success of businesses. With the term justice, I'm referring to both legal services and dispute resolution services. Legal services are all institutions relevant for the legal positions and relations of businesses. For example, the commercial register, tax authorities, and services providing legal information and support. Dispute resolution services are all institutions supporting businesses in solving internal or external conflicts, for example, courts, arbitration panels, ombud schemes, and mediation services. To name just 3 concrete examples. Commercial registers allow businesses to structure their organization. Insolvency law and insolvency courts are fundamental for managing the relationship between businesses and their lenders in times of financial distress. And third, ombud schemes support businesses and their customers in finding solutions to services or sales contracts being disturbed by the lockdowns we are experiencing. Why are these justice services so essential? Because they provide the infrastructure within which businesses can maximize their profits and minimize their costs. Justice services are not just a matter of fairness. For businesses, justice services are a matter of economic success or failure. To build back better, our justice systems need to solve what the pathfinders for justice call the triple crunch. What is the triple crunch businesses face due to the pandemic? First, businesses have lost income, as many activities were and are affected by government prohibitions and many citizens being unwell. Second, there are significant backlogs in the justice system as the operations of legal services and dispute institutions were slowed down by the pandemic. Third, government budgets are constrained by increased spending on health and falling levels of economic activity and employment. These 3 challenges will need to be solved to build back better.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Felix, also for highlighting that the continuum of justice and legal services extends well beyond what we can traditionally think in this space, and that indeed accessibility of justice systems are a key element of economic success for business. And now let me turn to Laila. Laila, of course, you can share the experience at the country level, and what could be interesting is to understand from the Latvian perspective what has been the impact of the pandemic, but then also ensuing economic crisis on business activity, and in particular SMEs in Latvia. And also perhaps you could highlight some of the most significant legal needs of SMEs from your perspective. Please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's really a great pleasure for me to participate in this conference and share shortly the experience of Latvia to handle the difficulties posed by this pandemic. I will try to also show that it's not only the difficulties, but it's also a chance to get that golden edge or move forward with the digital services we have always wanted to promote. But one thing which has changed really significantly is the attitude which the government had to show towards the business, because with the pandemic, we have to show much more the advice, the guidance, and the sudden flexibility towards the statutory obligations of the companies. We had to put aside the bureaucratic or very formal approach to the businesses to what is written in the rules, and the rules had to be adjusted very quickly. Just to show that we had to create rules to show that, to give the financial support to the companies, depending on how much they suffered from the pandemic effect, because different sectors suffer differently. This had to be evaluated and the rules had to be elaborated, and that had to be reflected in legislation. So their advice, guidance, and flexibility had to be introduced. It's also, we had to introduce completely new rules on self-organization of the company because they couldn't meet anymore in person. So we had to create legal regime for digital shareholder meetings, for digital creditor meetings. First, it came as a part of COVID law, and now it is already in our general law, and the companies give to us very positive remarks on practical application of these laws. And the third element, what I wanted to touch in this very short intervention, is the effect of the ability to solve the credits or to meet the financial requirements, and the Latvian government chose to apply insolvency moratorium. And right now we kind of have stopped the possibility to start insolvency proceedings, and now we are looking forward and analyzing how we shall meet the challenges once the situation will be normalized and the moratorium will be stopped. So once again, advice, guidance, flexibility, and access to the services. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Laila. Also for indeed highlighting that, of course, while the crisis has created many challenges for our societies and economies, it also presented an opportunity to innovate, be that the adoption of digital technologies or innovation when it comes to the rules of the game, so to say. Let me now turn to João, to the Portuguese case. João, I'd like to ask you exactly the same question as I just did for Laila. What has been the impact of the pandemic on business and SMEs in Portugal, and what can we learn about the legal needs in that space? Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tatyana. Evidentemente que o impacto da crise económica que resulta da situação pandémica é muito importante em Portugal, nomeadamente nas atividades em que a mobilidade das pessoas e o contacto pessoal é mais intenso. E, portanto, evidentemente, as atividades turísticas que têm uma grande presença em Portugal, o impacto foi extremamente importante e continua a ser. Mas, tal e qual como a Laila já sublinhou, alguns aspectos desta crise tiveram que ter, do ponto de vista das respostas públicas e do ponto de vista da resposta legislativa, mudanças muito significativas. Em particular, na organização do trabalho e nas condições de manutenção do trabalho de forma remota. O impacto do ponto de vista legislativo e da regulação das relações laborais foi muito intenso. A segunda dimensão, do ponto de vista legislativo e do ponto de vista das relações locais, tem que ver com a adaptação das empresas a um ambiente de negócios diferente e a utilização das plataformas digitais em alternativa ao contacto pessoal, mantendo assim o nível de atividade adequado ao nível da procura. E em terceiro lugar, a importância da adaptação das empresas e dos marcos regulatórios àquilo que eram as orientações em matéria de saúde, para que as empresas pudessem adaptar as suas condições de atividade às circunstâncias pandémicas. Num quarta dimensão, com os instrumentos de suporte à atividade económica, nomeadamente aquilo que eram as regulações do layoff simplificado e os sistemas de apoio às empresas que significaram um quadro regulatório e legal distinto, portanto, uma adaptação necessária do lado das empresas. Obrigado.
Yes, thank you so much, João, also for mentioning all of the adaptations that have been done as a result of the crisis. And of course, now it brings us to the next question, which I'd like to actually turn to Professor Steffek. When we are thinking about business-friendly justice or justice that is centered on the needs of the users, be that people or in this case small and medium enterprises, SMEs, what could be some of the fundamental principles that we could rely on in thinking about that type of the justice system? Felix, please.
Thank you. This is really a very timely question, and I'm very
Felix,
grateful.
you're muted.
Oh. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Yes? Okay. This is really a very timely question. And I'm very grateful, Tatyana, that your organization, the OECD, has given particular consideration to this topic in the recent roundtable on accessible and people-centered justice. I would like to concentrate on 4 high-level principles and then finally consider the particular position of SMEs. First, I would like to recommend a people-centric approach. Now, this may seem odd at first. We've heard it today, but one might say, why, in the context of businesses, should we not speak about profits and losses rather than people? I would like to say, however, that I think that businesses are run by people. They serve people and they deal with people. And so principles for business-friendly justice should be built on serving people's needs and reflecting their capabilities. Second, I think that an empirical foundation is key. If business-friendly justice serves the people managing and dealing with businesses, then we need to understand what they need and how they interact with the justice system. Increasingly, countries are undertaking legal needs assessments and are mapping their services to matching these needs. Third, justice in the context of commerce should be understood as an integral part of business success. Justice problems are not just a sideshow to commercial activity. Justice problems instead will often decide whether a business year is successful or not. Accordingly, laws and public institutions need to reflect the products, services, and specializations of businesses. Fourth, business justice should reflect the values of society. Businesses can make positive contributions to economic, environmental, and social progress. However, societies are also increasingly demanding for businesses not to operate in a commercial vacuum, but to reflect societal values and priorities. And this includes supporting inclusion and vulnerable groups through business justice. Fourth, business-friendly justice should foster innovation and integrate technological advances. Technology and data-driven design promises improved quality and efficiency for justice systems concerning businesses. However, these opportunities also come with challenges. It is important to establish transparency and trust with citizens confronted by technological innovations. Regulation, or at least oversight, can build public trust in handling personal data and using new technologies, especially in public services such as the justice system. And now, as regards SMEs, I do think that they require particular attention when designing justice systems. SMEs, as you mentioned, have less time and resources to engage in justice compared to larger enterprises. Smaller firms often lack the capacity and resources to navigate uncertain regulatory environments and to engage in dispute resolution. However, SMEs are also more affected very fundamentally by legal conflicts. And this vulnerable position of SMEs needs to be kept in mind when building justice systems.
Yes, thank you, Felix. Indeed, a lot of food for thought in thinking about those principles, and of course, looking at the importance of the empirical foundations when talking about the needs of business and SMEs, designing justice solutions that respond exactly to those needs, but then also the role of technology and data, but importance of also maintaining trust in the system, and what governments can do to actually build that trust, and using both technology and data also without undermining some of the fundamental principles. So thank you so much for that reflection. Now let me move again to the national level, and yes, I'd like to turn to Laila for the Latvian perspective. And Laila, when we've been working with the government of Latvia on designing or thinking together on how the justice system can be responding best to the needs of SMEs, we learned about many interesting initiatives that you have been developing in Latvia, including Consult First, that really aims to create a prevention strategy around SME legal problems by providing advice before sanctions. Could you perhaps elaborate a bit more on that initiative and perhaps anything else that you've developed also during the pandemic? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Tatyana. It's a really great question because the initiative Consult First is now even more important than before pandemic. As I mentioned already before, the legal environment is changing constantly, and very often small and medium-sized businesses, as already mentioned before, they lack capacity to follow the change of rules. They lack capacity to understand what the government, what the legislator wants from the companies to do. And then the advice and guidance, not sanctioning, is really that's what they need. And I think we heard also from interventions before that small and medium companies, like people as well, they look for their legal advice, not from the courts, not from the lawyers, but on internet and from their colleagues, etc. Therefore, the advice, the consultation is of extreme importance. And what we have learned, which is also extremely important, that advice is available on digital resources. It is the homepages of the state agencies. More modern tools like chatbots, etc., are the ones which can enable companies to understand the law, to follow it, and not to be penalized. And even step further, what we have done, it is the active development of practical guidance, how to apply the rules, how to understand how it works in practice, using the description, using schemes, and showing what do we want that the companies are doing. And I think the next level, which I'm really proud we have achieved, to introduce the initiative Consult First into law enforcement agencies. That is to our police officers, who are now responsible to look after the restrictions caused for the COVID. And companies very often, they don't want to break the rules, but they simply are not aware how to best abide the rules. And this has been a great success where the police, in majority of cases, they apply non-punitive measures when they see certain mistakes or maybe small not observances of the rules. They don't punish the companies. They advise how to obey the rule. And this has created a very positive exchange of views, a very positive dynamic between the businesses and the government. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. And now looking at the Portuguese case, João, could you please perhaps reflect on some of the similar initiatives in Portugal when it comes to designing or facilitating the resolution of legal needs of businesses in a manner that is user-centric, please?
Muito obrigado. Talvez duas linhas de reflexão. Uma primeira, sublinhando a importância de os mecanismos regulatórios serem mais simplificados. A importância de a informação ao serviço das empresas ser organizada de forma também atraente e simples à compreensão das empresas. E os mecanismos de desmaterialização dos procedimentos legais e administrativos. Vemos que esta dimensão de ambiente regulatório é muito importante para que as empresas tenham um ambiente de negócios facilitado, que o recurso à justiça seja feito apenas nas condições que sejam absolutamente imprescindíveis para tal. Uma segunda dimensão, mais do ponto de vista dos mecanismos de facilitação da recuperação das empresas, que é muito importante no ambiente que nós vivemos. Sobre esse tema, concretizamos um regime extrajudicial de recuperação das empresas, retirando pendências dos tribunais, facilitando a rapidez dos processos de recuperação. Não há nada pior do que ter um prazo longo de tentativa de recuperação da empresa, porque esse prazo longo, com certeza, que torna ainda mais difícil os mecanismos de recuperação. Para isso, identificamos a importância de termos mecanismos de alerta precoce sobre a situação das empresas, termos também formas de mediação para esse processo de recuperação. Instituímos a figura de um mediador de recuperação de empresas. Evidentemente que nas circunstâncias especiais que vivemos, criámos ainda um regime simplificado de recuperação de empresas, precisamente para que empresas com condições de se manter no mercado, apesar da crise económica, tenham soluções para o seu futuro. Muito obrigado.
Yes, thank you so much, João. Also, for speaking about something that is extremely important in the discussions of many of the OECD committees, the role of administrative simplification has been highlighted multiple times as an enabler of a sound business environment. And of course, also the out-of-court mechanisms can make part of this broader service continuum that was mentioned by Felix at the beginning of our session. Conscious that we are getting, that we are effectively a bit out of time, let me just pose one last question to all of you and invite you to really quickly, maybe in 30 seconds, highlight what are some of the remaining challenges and opportunities in promoting business-centered or user-centered justice from perhaps the country standpoint, and then maybe going to a bit broader perspective by Felix. So let me maybe start with the country level. Laila, just turning a bit the order. Yes, would you just be able to give in 30 seconds your view on the remaining challenges and opportunities?
Thank you. I think it's just three things. First thing is the availability of official data from state registers. This is something which can create a lot of businesses, a lot of profits, and the move towards opening up the data and giving it out without charges is the right move. And I just wanted to mention that in case of Latvia, the company register has chosen that path and is successfully providing data free of charge in readable format. And it is highly appreciated for everybody, especially because of the anti-money laundering measures where they need to do the due diligence over their clients. The second thing is the e-services of the court system, that is availability of different templates, the use of video conferencing, the use of digital platforms for actual court sittings is the future for the judicial development of the system. It has been a very successful use of the pandemic restrictions to move towards the use of those platforms. And just by 30% in half a year, it has increased. And the last, but not least, it is the advice from the state. And but one thing I wanted to mention is that the Ministry of Justice has devised a practical guide for debt restructuring. As we know, the effect of the pandemic will be devastating for the companies, and their need to increase their financial knowledge and ability to face the financial difficulties will be of extreme importance. So that's the three things. Thank you.
Thank you, Laila. And now I'd like to super quickly turn to João, please. 30 seconds.
Muito obrigado. Talvez a importância da especialização dos tribunais e dos mecanismos alternativos à utilização de tribunais por via de arbitragens e de outros mecanismos associados, por forma a diminuir o recurso à justiça nos pequenos litígios e, portanto, assim também obter maior capacidade de resposta do lado do sistema judicial para as grandes questões que que favoreçam um ambiente de negócios mais harmonizado e mais no quadro de uma concorrência mais sã.
Thank you. Excellent. And Felix, please.
Thank you. So 3 brief points. First, I think we still need to work on SME-friendly justice, because our definitions of SMEs currently capture companies or businesses that are so large, including 100 million euros turnover per year, but these are not the real small businesses we need to think about. Second, technology and data. We still are only starting to really integrate technology and data into our justice services, and that will be a monumental task going forward. And third, I think technology and data will raise the question of the relationship between private and public service providers in the area of justice that will have to be redefined and re-understood both by lawmakers and by citizens. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. I'd like to indeed express my appreciation for all of these reflections and interventions. I won't aim to summarize them. I will speak a bit later on that. But I also hope that you have enjoyed all of the audience, this panel discussion as much as I did. So thank you so much to the panelists, and I'd like to turn back to the organizers.